Arrangements, and Senator Roberts has 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. As a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, I want to show how One Nation will fix the cost of living crisis. To fix the cost of living crisis, there are only 3 things Parliament must do. Stop the flood of immigration into this country to fix the housing crisis. Stop the chasing of UN net zero pipe dream to fix energy bills. Stop the Reserve Bank printing money out of thin air to fix inflation. Every time we hear about the number of immigrants coming in, the number goes up. Just this week it was reported that Deutsche Bank predicts that net immigration for the financial year will top 530,000. Net immigration. That does not include temporary workers. It does not include students, which the total is 1.2 million. 1.2 million in 1 year. That's more than the entire population of Canberra arriving in 1 year. In fact, it's almost double. It's almost triple. Immigration is why we have a rental crisis. It's why we have a housing crisis. It's why many young people will never be able to buy a home. The big business donors to both Liberal and Labor benefit from big immigration. If we want a roof over every Australian head, we must stop this flood. The next contributor to our problem is the net zero scam, the UN's net zero scam. The lie that wind and solar is the cheapest electricity is easily debunked using one fact. With the largest amount of wind, solar and batteries on Australia's power grid in our history, power bills have never been higher. Every country in the world that has tried to go down the path of wind and solar has had higher power bills. Every country. Watch electricity bills drop when we abandon UN net zero, fire up the coal-fired power stations and let nuclear onto the playing field. To fix inflation, just stop the Reserve Bank printing $500 billion as they did during COVID. $500 billion. That way the Reserve Bank doesn't have to try and send mortgage holders broke to fix the inflation the Reserve Bank caused. Many of the solutions are simple. We just need more One Nation members because only we have the guts to call this rubbish out. Liberal Senator McGrath mentioned in raising this MPI motion that mortgages are up an average of $1,500 a month. Let's rewind the tape a second and look at why that's happening. The Reserve Bank claims it needs to raise interest rates to fight inflation. Inflation is like an equation. When you have too much money chasing too few goods, prices go up. It's that simple. Throughout history, the idea is if the Reserve Bank raises interest rates enough, mortgage holders won't have money to spend. Prices come down. That takes care of the too much money side of the equation. With interest rates higher, Australians will have less money to spend on goods, so inflation will come down. Now, I'm not kidding. This is what the Reserve Bank means when they say they are fighting inflation. They are sending Australians broke to solve a problem that the Reserve Bank created together with the Morrison government. What no one likes to talk about is the Reserve Bank's part in creating the inflation problem. You'll remember from our equation that too much money equals more inflation. During COVID, the Reserve Bank printed roughly $500 billion, $500 billion new dollars, out of thin air using what they call electronic ledger entries. Their words. $500 billion conjured up out of thin air and dropped from a helicopter to compensate for the Liberal government's economy-wrecking COVID restrictions that weren't necessary. That $500 billion is new money in a major cause of the inflation problem Australia is still fighting. And who got the money? Largely foreign-owned multinationals. To summarise the inflation problem, the Reserve Bank printed hundreds of billions of dollars out of thin air. That led to huge inflation. Now the Reserve Bank is trying to send enough mortgage holders broke so they will stop spending to try and bring inflation down. Another housing crisis. Lockdowns devastated our economy, our businesses. That cut the supply side, which meant fewer goods, which meant prices for those fewer goods raised. Inflation. No, this isn't a comedy skit. This is the strategy of the people who were and who are running the country, and they're in charge of our economy. Every single part of this happened under the direction and watch of the supposedly conservative Liberal National Coalition government. For the Liberals to come to this chamber and bemoan the inflation problem and mortgage repayments is politics at its worst. I said earlier in the week, with this economy, that the Liberal National Coalition government gave Labor one of the largest hospital passes in political history. In saying that, Labor now wants to turbocharge the destruction of our economy.
Thank you.